Building developers, I wrote this down. Building developers get tax write-offs for putting low-income sections of housing in their new developments. Typically, they're luxury apartments. Section 8 will pay the portion of the rent. The resident pays 30% of their income. Section 8 covers the rest. The government pays the remainder, and even if it's up $1,000 for a place, as long as the resident is paying 30% of their income. If the person's income goes up and a significant amount, they are evicted. They are taken off the program. Meanwhile, the government is spending a ton subsidizing housing for, say, one family in a luxury apartment, while there are people on wait lists for years who cannot get housing at all. That's the scam. And the article that we have on this talks about it as entrapment into poverty, because they can get into a nice place, but they can't earn enough to do it themselves, so it disincentivizes them from getting more employment, getting better employment, ever getting out of government assistance. And these guys are getting tax credits of $1 of tax credit worth every dollar they spend on low-income housing.
And we wonder.
So it's basically cronyism kind of thing? It's a taxpayer subsidy for the rich real estate developers.
Yes, and in addition to that, it keeps people who might otherwise be able to move out of the lower income bracket that they're in into a actually make more money and do better for themselves and for their families. But when the options that you're presented with are, okay, make less money and stay in an awesome house, in an awesome apartment with a pool and all sorts of benefits and stuff, or make more money, have to move out of this awesome apartment and get no assistance from the government. I mean, if you are somebody who is in that economic situation and you have to make that choice for yourself and for your family, what are you going to? Are you stupid? No, you're going to go for the one that gives you the most benefits.
And you're going to work under the table. You'll increase your income through non-official means.
This is a prime example of a bunch of waste and a bunch of cronyism and subsidies to rich folks who are developing buildings and not helping the poor that it's intended to help. This is a government transfer of wealth from people paying taxes to rich developers. And if we can point that out and make that case while expanding the opportunity to get more people off those wait lists and into government housing, and then having that penalty eased where they begin to make more money, maybe they just end up paying more of the rent a little bit. Not exact one-on-one based on what they're making, but a little higher percentage each time, and actually have some progress. This is a really easy system, easy fix here for conservatives to sell based on the waste and the cronyism involved in this program.
This reminds me, or it brings some truth to an episode that I recently saw of, I forget what crime show it was, but it was about the pour door. There was a crime that happened in an upscale apartment complex in New York City, only it was the murder victim was on the poor side of this upscale apartment complex, and it was a separate entrance that the subsidized people lived in, and then the rich people were in the door, next door. Maybe they shared a wall, but the expensive developer had the rich people living on this side, and there were hundreds of them in the penthouses and all of that, but then they had the poor door that the subsidized people lived in, and now it makes sense. I didn't understand why that was a thing in New York, but apparently it's enough of a known thing that it made an episode of TV in one of the crime dramas where they were talking about the poor door. And yes, it's great that poor people can find housing, but talk about discriminating, talk about indentured servitude, basically. We've got the poor people are servants to the rich people, even though they're not directly working for them. The poor people, by living there, are allowing those rich people to have that housing, because that maybe the real estate developer wouldn't have gotten the permit to build that housing without also saying, oh yes, I'm also putting low rent housing in here. Oh, and give me my tax credits while I'm at it. So that developer gets kudos for however many units of low income housing he's creating. And he's considered somebody who is taking care of the poor, and he's a good guy. But he's getting tax credits, and he's really hanging out with the rich people, and he makes the poor people enter through a separate door.
What kind of women are we sending out into the world? These are women that I presume want to change things for the better. If they can't handle an opposing idea on campus, how in the world are they going to handle the real world?